the female clients that I have to coach are like, well, help, explain it to me more and let me listen to 3 more podcasts about the same topic. And then let me ask 3 more of my friends before I move my money to a high yield savings account. Like, ladies.
Welcome to another episode of the Simply Retirement Podcast. I am your host, Eric Blake, practicing retirement planner for over 25 years, founder of Blake Wealth Management, and I would not be the man I am today without the women in my life. On today's episode, I'm joined by Bernadette Joy, author and CEO of Crush Your Money Goals. Bernadette works with individuals who are looking to take control of their financial lives and focuses on helping them build clarity, confidence, and long-term financial independence. Today, we're talking about redefining what retirement can look like, how to think about work when it becomes optional, and why this matters, especially for women navigating retirement, major life transitions, or simply asking what comes next on my financial journey. Bernadette, welcome to the Simply Retirement Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. I know we've gone back and forth a little bit through LinkedIn and emails and all that kind of stuff, fun stuff. So I'm excited about the conversation. And I wanted to start, in your work, you focus heavily on helping people build clarity and confidence around their money, especially during moments where they may be lacking control or feel like they've got a lack of control of what their financial future looks like. And something that really stood out to me because, many of the women we work with have found themselves on the other side of a divorce, maybe being widowed. And these transitions often come with a lot of uncertainty and sometimes even hesitation around decisions that they may not have had to make on their own before. And I just wanted to start off by just having you share a little bit about your work that you're doing, your background, and what actually got you into what you're doing today.
Sure. Well, I am Bernadette Joy. I wrote this book here, Crush Your Money Goals, and it's a culmination of my work for the past decade in specifically majority women, although I do have male clients as well, who I think complementary to what you do are contemplating that transition or anticipating that transition potentially happening. And they are just really afraid. And so often I have clients who are thinking about getting a divorce, but haven't really told anyone, don't think they can afford to get a divorce. Or maybe they've been a caregiver for a very long time. And this is the first time that they are realizing that they don't have an identity outside of their job or caregiving. And specifically, I run a financial education program, also called Crush Your Money Goals, the boot camp. And in that 12-week program, we walk through the 5 steps of Crush, which gets them to clean up their finances, to curate the accounts that they really need, to start thinking about what independence even looks like, and then to understand the path and the gap between where they want to be, where they are now, and then appropriately putting the spending plan together. And then lastly, talking about the money wounds. I call them money wounds. You can call it financial trauma. You can call it a lot of other things that is very hot in the personal finance space. But I found that a lot of the things that we think are holding us back isn't really about money. It's about the experiences that we've had, particularly as women, that are telling us that we can't do this by ourselves. So it's been a very exciting, a very challenging job. I tell people that I have 2 degrees in business, a bachelor's and a master's, and then also a degree in psychology. And the psychology degree has actually been way more useful.
Right.
In this area of expertise here, because a lot of what we talk about is really figuring out how we want to show up in the world. And so much of that is linked to how we think about ourselves.
Well, I think one of the things that's really cool, and it's something that you talk about a lot from the chance to research a little bit before our conversation, and that's that you talk about walking the walk and talking the talk. And you yourself have paid off $300,000 of debt within just a few year time, which is incredible. What were some of the biggest shifts financially or mentally that you made that possible?
So I have now been debt-free since 2019, the first time around. And then I went to go buy what I thought was going to be my retirement home, which is another story, in 2021, and then paid that one off. So I've been really debt-free since 2021, including a mortgage. And the biggest mental shift that I had to really come to terms with, that I have to teach all of my clients, is that debt is meant to be a short-term solution and not a long-term lifestyle. But the assumption, especially in the US, is that, well, you can't start a business unless you take out a business loan, and you can't buy a house unless you have a mortgage, and you can't go to school unless you take out student loans. All of those different types of good debt, right? But at the end of the day, I don't actually believe in good debt or bad debt. To me, debt is just debt. And I don't know anyone that would argue with me that you are freer with debt than without it. And so the biggest mental shift in the beginning, when I started teaching myself personal finance, was like, I just want to get out of this $300,000 of debt. It was $72,000 of student loans. It was like the usual bills of credit cards and things that normal people have, car lease. And then it was also not one, but two mortgages at the time, because I thought I was going to be like the next HGTV star back then. And turns out 10 years later, and we can talk more about that, is that I have been living debt free, not only financially, but emotionally. And I think in a lot of ways, spiritually, in that a lot of people say, well, Bernadette, how do you have this confidence to be out here in the world like the way that you talk and doing, stand-up comedy or whatever? And it's just like, because I don't owe anyone any money. So I can just do whatever. I can just do whatever. And there's not really that much risk to it. And I think that's the other piece, is realizing that debt, like if you need to get into debt because there's no other way for you to go to college, that you get into medical debt because you'd rather be alive than dead, then absolutely. But what I found is that a lot of people, and even myself back in the day, just looked at debt as like a first resort and not a last.
Well, I think one of the things that's interesting, there's this correlation between financial fitness, physical fitness, but when somebody decides to take control of either of those aspects of their lives, there's almost always some trigger, some series of events, kind of that last straw, so to speak. What was that for you?
Oh, I remember very specifically. It was January of 2016, and I had one semester left in my MBA program, and I had been working at the same time. And so I had been paying alongside, and I had taken out student loans, but I didn't really know how much I had taken out. So I went to go look at the balance, and I literally collapsed. I was sitting at this desk, just a different place. And I was sitting at this desk, and I was like, what? How can this be? How do I have 72,000? I had been paying all along. I had no idea it had accumulated to be that much. I had no idea that it was earning interest along the way. For some reason in my brain, I was thinking, oh, like interest doesn't start until after I graduate. That wasn't true. And I just felt really stupid. I don't know how else to say it. Like, I feel a lot of people can relate to this, is that you've made a financial decision. You didn't realize maybe all of the fine print on it. And in hindsight, you might not have made the same decision had you realized what the consequences of that was. That was that for me.
Okay.
And so I wasn't even paying attention to class. This was before, Zoom was really a thing. And I was on a class like this in my box. And I wish I could go back to the professor and ask for that recording that day, because you probably just saw Bernadette just like fall over in that video. And I went to my husband immediately after class was done, and I said, I think I messed up. I messed up really badly. I took out all of the student loan debt. I have no idea how I'm going to pay this off. I have no plan for this. And my husband, if you ever meet him, is the chillest person you'll ever meet. And he goes, all of our friends have student loans. Like, all of our friends have mortgages. Like, all of our friends have all this stuff that we have. So it's not a big deal. And my thought was, all of my friends work like 60 hours a week, and all of my friends are kind of miserable. And I'm not doing this. I just don't want to do it. So I resolved that day that I was going to pay off my student loans in 2 years. I didn't know how or what way that was going to happen, but I said, you know what? $72,000 divided by 2 years is $36,000 a year, which is a lot of freaking money. That's more than what I actually make right now. What I made back then a year. But I said $36,000 divided by 12 is about $3,000 a month, which is about $750 a week if there's 4 weeks, which is about $100 a day. So Bernadette, you just spent $110,000 in an MBA program. Can you figure out how to make $100 a day? And that's just like where I started running with it.
That's awesome. I want to ask you, how you've taken those experiences and then taken that into helping others achieve their own financial goals. But I'm curious first, when people come to you, has that event for them already happened, or do you help them find that event, find that trigger after they've engaged with you as to when they're that transition?
That is such a great question. I would say that the vast majority of people who come to me don't realize it's happened yet, but it did.
Okay.
So what I mean by that is that they have low key already been burned out at their job. They've been struggling with credit card debt now for multiple months at a time, thinking that they're just going to pay it off. They got laid off or someone passed away. Something already happened, but they didn't realize how much it was impacting them, and they didn't realize that the financial consequences of it didn't have to be that way. So what has been interesting, so once a quarter, it's timely. I have a workshop coming up this Sunday. Once a quarter, I always open up a free workshop to anyone, everyone all around the world to come and learn, no strings attached. And it is always fascinating to see people have this light bulb moment of, I've just been accepting that this is the way that life is.
Mm.
And so how many times have we, even for myself, like as an example, in 2021, my father passed away and like very suddenly. And I realized, I started making all these plans of like, how am I going to do my work? How am I going to figure out how to rearrange all my client meetings, all this other stuff. And then I was like, wait a minute, or I could just not do that. And I could just take all the time that I need to grieve. I have the funds. I have the support, but why do I automatically jump back into like hustle and just move everything around this thing, right? So to answer your question is, I think the vast majority of people that I meet, that event has probably come and go, and they've just glossed over it, or they've just accepted that there was no other better way out of it.
Perfect. Well, it's funny. I want to share just a quick story because it's funny enough. There's a lady that I've been in email communication. She was actually referred by another client. She's actually in Charlotte, North Carolina, as a matter of fact. So I've got a client in Charlotte, and then this lady's in Charlotte as well. But she reached out to me, and her big question was she is working with and I'll call it an advisor. My guess is he's probably an agent of some type.
Mm-hmm.
But her retirement plan, she's like, okay, I've been putting money into this plan. It hasn't really done a lot, and I'm not really getting great responses from this advisor. So our client suggests, hey, reach out to Eric, ask your questions, see what he can do to help. And her response recently was, you've provided more in the last couple of days than I've received in the last 7 years. But one of the things that when she responded to one of my questions, a few of the questions I provided, she said she was embarrassed that she didn't know this stuff. And I think that's something that happens a lot. And I'm sure you see it a lot in whether it's embarrassment or guilt. There's all kinds of emotions that come into play, especially when we're talking about finances. But one of the things I wanted to bring back to you, and this comes from one of our mutual connections, Tony Stewart, talked about that concept of financial fluency, right? And treating finances like another language, and kind of hopefully removing some of those barriers, those emotional barriers, that again, the embarrassment, the guilt, whatever that you might be experiencing, to open up that world and be able to take more control of your financial situation through that. Can you just share a little bit more what that financial fluency concept means to you?
Yes. You know what? I love Tony for this because
Yes.
I mentioned this to him like one time, and I wrote a couple articles about it, and he was just like, Bernadette, I love this so much. Do you mind if I share this idea with everybody? I'm like, go for it. And so I have experienced the same exact thing that you have, which is women in particular are embarrassed to say they don't know something, which frustrates me so much, because how many women are kind of like sitting in silence, suffering when they don't have to, if they could just say, I need help. I don't understand how to do that. Now we can go into, kind of the history of why that came to be and how women feel like they have to be superwoman in order to be seen as competent. But that's like another topic for another day. I got into some hot water with a lot of financial educators, I would say, because I wrote an article maybe a year ago or a year and a half ago for Bankrate that said something along the lines of financial literacy is dead. and here's what I teach instead. And the thought that I had was that if financial literacy programs really worked, then why are Americans in the state that we are in? And forget about like, oh, I didn't learn this as a kid or whatever. Like, why do I know 50, 60-year-olds who say they don't know how to retire, right? This doesn't make sense to me. And a lot of that issue was exactly as you described. People are not piping up and saying what they don't know. And so the analogy that I've given to a lot of folks that seems to resonate is that women in particular get very nervous around the idea, especially about investing. And when you start talking about IRAs and 401ks and tax advantage or whatever, that they think that it's like a math issue to solve. And I'm Asian. I happen to be stereotypically really good at math, so that never bothered me. But a lot of women are like, "Oh, I'm like not a math person." I'm like, money is not really a math problem to solve. Money is a like really psychological problem to solve, and really a skill you need to build. So the analogy I gave to someone at one point, and she said, "Oh my God, that makes so much sense," is that learning finances and learning how to retire is more akin to learning a language than it is to learning math, because math, there is literally a right or wrong answer for an equation. There's no debating that 2 + 2 = 4, right?
Right.
But when you learn a language, there are nuances to it. You have to learn the emotion behind, like you can't just repeat words like a robot, right? If you actually want to communicate with people, there are dialects, depending on who you're talking to, you have to understand what their fluency is. Like there's so many nuances about learning a language and I'm saying this as someone whose primary language is English. And I'm embarrassed about it. I have been trying to learn Korean and Spanish for years. And you know what the biggest barrier for me in learning a language is? Because I am afraid to sound stupid.
Right.
Like truly, like I have had so many opportunities to speak to people in Spanish and practice my Spanish, but I won't because I'm going to sound like that, that American who is saying like, yo quiero dinero or something like that and sounding really dumb. But the only way to get past that hurdle is to sound dumb, is to practice. So once I told people, this is about learning learning a language, you have to actually practice the skill. You have to practice it often. You have to practice it in context. You have to practice it with people who already know the thing you're trying to learn. Women started like really taking up to the programs that I was offering because that resonated a lot more than just saying, hey, this is a math problem to solve.
Well, I just want to share one other thing. So, because in her particular case, and she shared a little bit of information, I'm not going to go actually any of the private stuff, but she had been divorced in the past, but she's got an older daughter that is an amazing job. She's got another daughter that's going through school, going through college. She's done most of this stuff right. And she's going to have a pension when she eventually retires. You think about the value of a pension as compared to just putting money into a 401k or to a retirement account.
Yeah.
That's a huge chunk, actually. If you put it in perspective of income, she's done a lot of things right. But in her mind, again, she still felt embarrassed simply because she wasn't sure, am I investing my money the right way? And actually the advisor is not really providing a whole lot of additional guidance. So I'm so thankful that she reached out to me, is just say, okay, here's the path you can take to make sure you're on the right track. If there's any chance at all she's listening, I just want her to know she's doing the right stuff. She just needs to keep adjusting, keep improving, keep learning. You're on the right track.
Yes. And I hate to be stereotypical about like men versus women, but I have seen this play out in real time with my male clients versus my female clients. My male clients will just say, I don't know, Bernadette. I've never heard this before. Just tell me what it is. And then if I tell them to go do something to practice it, they'll just like go do it. But the female clients that I have to coach are like, well, help, explain it to me more and let me listen to 3 more podcasts about the same topic. And then let me ask 3 more of my friends before I move my money to a high yield savings account. Like, ladies, so, a lot of people who work with me, I think one of the reasons that I either work really well or not work well with people is because I'll just tell you straight, like, hey, you're paying me to give you the best version of information that is suitable for your situation. So if I've already said, hey, I'm telling you, like paying off your credit cards is a good idea, or moving this money that's just sitting in a checking account to high yields. I'm not even talking about investing. Like we're just talking about basic financial stuff. The amount of like back and forth and like I need to get all of this information for something that is relatively low risk has been fascinating, has been really fascinating for me to see. And now that I've had hundreds of people go through my program and like thousands of people go through like all the things that I've done before, that is a common theme that what has really woken up a lot of my clients, and I say this lovingly, okay? I say this like not to put anyone on the spot or make anyone feel bad, but our women in particular, our indecision and our fear of taking swift action is why we are where we are right now with bad people doing bad things.
Mm-hmm.
Because nobody wants to say anything and nobody wants to hold other people accountable, or, nobody wants to be like the person who's like, oh, well, if I say this thing, nobody's going to like me. And, we as women, like that person you're talking about in particular, it was already indicative. I've never met this woman before, but she did the right things because she has a pension and she has 2 daughters who have good jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So are we as women being the role models for our daughters and the next generation to say, hey, like you need to be in control of your finances, because at the end of the day, money does make the world go round. And if we want to, this is the other thing. Now you're getting me on my high horse here, is like,
It's okay.
I'm in so many women's empowerment groups where we talk about speaking up and speaking louder and finding our voice. And I'm like, ladies, it doesn't matter how loud your voice is, to be honest, if you don't have the agency and the funds to back that voice up. So that's like really where I stand. A lot of that is, now I'm like in this space because I've also just retired recently, that I really don't care that much about what people think, where I just say like, okay, well then you just keep doing what you're doing, which is nothing right now. And if nothing happens and your situation doesn't improve, that is okay. That is a choice. And if you're willing to make that choice that things are not going to improve, then you just have to be okay with that choice. Then don't come back and complain about, oh, the world is like this and my boss is toxic and I can't quit my job or whatever it is. Like, no, we had an option to do something different and we chose not to do that option. And for some reason that's working, at least for my clients.
Hey everyone, it's Eric. Hope you're enjoying today's episode. I want to take just a quick moment to share a resource I think you'll find valuable. Have you ever found yourself asking, how much can I put into an IRA this year? Or how much can I earn before my Social Security gets reduced? Those are the kinds of questions that come up all the time, and the answers change often more than you think. That's why we created a free 2-page tax and retirement planning cheat sheet, updated for 2026, with the key tax, Social Security, and retirement numbers all in one place. You can download it right now at the simplyretirementpodcast.com/retirement cheat sheet. It's a simple reference you can keep handy whenever questions come up. Now, back to the episode. So my high horse is, having been an advisor for over 25 years now, is financial advisors, specifically male financial advisors, failing women across the board for the most part for many, many years, right? Not giving them the space or the opportunity to ask their questions. And I still hear these stories. It's 2026 and I still hear these stories about, well, if I didn't ask a question, I felt stupid. If I did ask a question, my husband or the advisor made me feel stupid, like I shouldn't, like you're supposed to know this stuff, but a lot of us don't. A lot of men don't, as you've already touched on that. And so that's really, I feel like our industry has failed women to a great extent. And my background, being raised by a single mom, seeing my grandmother widowed at 62, that's actually, there's always a story behind what we do. Same thing for you, as what was that trigger to get you to the place you're at today? Mm-hmm. And I just feel like our industry has not done a great job. And now all of a sudden we've got this big wealth transfer that's being talked about in our industry. And what are you going to do to better work with women? I'm like, now, because you're worried about losing money and losing income, now you're going to focus on what I should be doing better to work with women. That doesn't make any sense to me. I don't understand it.
I love that you mentioned that. And I wish there were more men like you in the industry. I was in financial services for like a decade before I moved into what I was doing. And it's a yes and. So I do improv. So we always learn yes and. So yes, the men have failed us. But also, to a certain extent, women, we cannot keep failing ourselves and not advocating for ourselves. I'm going to give you a tiny, small example from yesterday because it's like fresh in my mind. So, I wake up yesterday and there's some kind of like weird transaction on my account for like $7,000. And I was like, what in the world is this? Right. And so I'm calling a bank. I will not, let's say it rhymes with the word ace. And the bank, like the person who's on the phone says, oh, like this is not our department. So we have to like, of course, bump you to somewhere else. And then they bumped me to this other place and then I have to sit on the phone for 20 minutes waiting for someone to pick up the phone. And like you stare at a transaction that's not supposed to be there for like $7,000. You're like, what? Like you're freaking out, right? Like I'm freaking out.
Right.
And so I finally get on the phone with the person and I said, you know what? Like while I'm waiting, I'm just going to go to a physical branch. Like while I'm waiting, I'm just going to keep waiting and then go to the closest branch and figure out if someone can help me there. And so as I'm driving, the guy picks up and he's just like explaining to me what the thing is and whatever. And I was like, can you email it to me? Cause like, I need this information to continue to follow up with like the merchant or whatever. And he's like, no, I can't do that. Like, I can only give you a phone number or whatever. And then I said, okay, well, I'm about to be at the branch, in like 8 minutes. So, can you just wait? He's like, well, you can just call me back, call the service line again when you're at the branch. And I'm like, no, because I waited. This has been 30 minutes already that I've been on this. And so I would like for you to just wait until I get to the branch. And by the way, I used to work for this company too. So I'm like, okay, let's play this game, sir. So I said, can you just wait until I get there? He's like, well, I can only wait for 2 minutes. And I said, why? Why? This is a $7,000 issue for me. And I'm asking you to wait an extra 6 minutes. And also, I'm driving right now, so I can't write down the phone number that you are telling me to write down. So are you now asking me to do something unsafe? And so, long story short, dude waited and waited until I got to the branch, and then he had to talk to the person at the branch, and then they had to like exchange, the code so that they know I'm really, all this other stuff or whatever. But you know how many women I know that'd be like, oh, he said he can only wait for 2 minutes, so I'll just inconvenience myself. No, ladies, people can wait, okay? And you can say, I need your help in this way. And also, if this is an issue, like in my case, a $7,000 issue. Now I've become a lot less hot-headed, which sounds, I know, like crazy, but like I've been way more hot-headed before, but now I learned how to say it in a way that's just like, okay, what would you like me to do, sir? Cause I can't take the phone number, So when I talk about that, I'm sharing that as a small example of like, most women would just like hang up the phone and inconvenience themselves for another hour, 2 hours in the middle of their workday. And that's like on something small. So imagine asking an investment question or asking your financial advisor, like, I don't understand why my portfolio is down this much, or like, I don't understand why I paid this much. But these are all real questions that my clients have had. I don't understand why I owed $50,000 in taxes last year. Like they're afraid to ask those questions when no, you actually not only not need to be afraid, but it is their job to help you. Like this guy's job was to help me as a customer service person.
I think that sounds like walking the walk and talking the talk to me. Is that
literally, or driving the drive, I guess, in that
right?
case yesterday.
Driving the drive. So I want to ask you this question because actually you have very busy. You're doing a lot of things. I know you had sent me an invite to a conference you've got coming on in just about a month and a half or so. That sounds amazing. But you just called yourself retired here just a little bit ago. But actually, you're still doing a lot of things. Can you talk a little bit about that? And actually, the definition of retirement has drastically changed over the last several years. What does retirement mean to you, and what is it that keeps you going?
Oh my gosh, I love this question so much because I have no idea how to answer it. So
that's a great question, then, right?
It's a great question. So I had not intended to fully retire. I was planning to do like kind of a partial retirement when I turned 40. But then I got scared, as I think a lot, maybe you've experienced this. People are like, I think I have enough money. Even if you tell me I have enough money, I still don't want to do it. I'm afraid. And then, long story short, in August of last year, one of my clients just passed away very suddenly from a car accident, her and her husband. And the last conversation I had with her was all of the things that she was going to do when the time was right. And that literally hit me like a ton of bricks, thinking that and she said, you're the only person I'm telling these things to. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, or whatever. But the time is not right now. Give me another year, Bernadette, and then I'll be ready. And that year never came. Right. So if I'm being totally honest, I went into a little bit of a spiral last year where I was just like, if anyone's had this happen where like someone close to you or someone that you know well just gone all of a sudden. Like, you start questioning, like, why am I even doing any of this? What is the point? What is the point of all this? So I ended up taking a sabbatical. I told all my clients, I said, I'm going on sabbatical. And I was very honest with them. I'm like, this is why. I really need to take a step back and decide how I want to go into this next chapter of my life. Also, something about turning 40 does something like that to you. And I took the sabbatical and I realized I didn't die and I actually really enjoyed it. And I was like, how do I make this permanent? And so December rolled around. My husband left his job in December. And then we went through the whole rigmarole of understanding how to find healthcare outside of an employer and all of that. And then this year, I decided at now 41 that it turns out I still really like the work that I do. And I probably like it even more because I know I don't have to do it.
Mm.
The long-winded answer to your question of like, what is retirement to me right now? I'm still figuring out from the perspective of retirement for me is that there is enough money coming from my investments and my nest egg to pay for my basic living expenses. So I don't have to work. But if I choose to work, it's going to be very meaningful, very, very impactful work. So I say that because that event that I sent to you, this business retreat I'm doing in May, that has been something that's been on my mind for the last 3 years. And I have spoken at dozens of conferences as a paid speaker. I've spoken at South by Southwest. I've spoken at like NASDAQ. I've been the host of another like personal finance conference for the past couple of years. And I even at one point, put offers out to various conferences to just purchase those conferences outright. And what I found was that a lot of the events that I go to, and I would say specifically any kind of money related events like personal finance and stuff, one, they either tend to be really boring and dry. And again, like not a lot of women in representation. But even the ones that are larger, the speakers are almost always unpaid, as in like they're not professional and they just like slap a PowerPoint presentation the night before and then show up on stage. So I don't like that. I found that a lot of these conferences care more about quantity and volume, and therefore like the content is not vetted out to be very specific to what the people need. And I also found that networking tended to be very like random, like you're just hoping you run into people there. So I wanted to basically create an event that does all the opposite. And that was what I decided this year was my largest investment. So this event that I'm running, if anyone has ever run an event with like, it's about 100 people. So that's the other thing. I'm an introvert. I don't like large conferences. So I was like, let me find like the 100 people who I think are doing really good quality work and actually show them how to scale their business on 20 hours a week, which is what I've done. So I do work, but I say I work 20 hours a week. It's an intense 20 hours a week, but then I'm done after 20 hours a week. And that's a long-winded way of me saying is that what I'm navigating, and I hope a lot of people can resonate listening to this, is that everyone I've told who I said I'm retiring this year, they think as retirement as full stop, not working, versus actually finally for the first time in your life choosing the work that like matters to you.
Right. Well, I think it's interesting that you mentioned the 20 hours because there was, I did an episode a while back and it was based on an article that talked about your 1,000 hours of retirement. And what are you going to do with your 1,000 hours? And it was basically 20 hours per week, 52 weeks a year. There's 1,000 hours. You're going to have to figure out how you're going to fill that time. Because if you're not working in an office from 9 to 5, or you're not doing those other things, some of that time is just taken up by, spending time with family or running chores or whatever. But 20 hours a week, you're going to have to figure out what you're going to do. Is it going to be, are you going to start a new hobby? What are you going to do? You're going to take a class? For you, is it, I'm running this business, but at the end of the 20 hours, you're done.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's just interesting that you brought up the 20-hour concept, because that's one of those things people have to decide, what am I actually going to do? And I think that's part of the emotions that you brought up earlier. Retirement is not just finance. It's not just an equation. It's what am I actually going to do? How am I going to spend my time beyond just how am I going to spend my money? What am I actually going to do for those 20 hours?
Yes. So I got into an argument. I seem to get an argument with a lot of people. I got into an argument with one of the Dave Ramsey personalities. I'm blanking on his name right now. He's the guy who like talks about career and stuff. And I was at Dave Ramsey headquarters and having this debate with him on stage about. I told him I was going to retire. at 40. And he goes, no, you're not. I'm like, what? I'm like, I just met you. What are you even talking about? And he said, I bet you in 3 years, you're going to be bored. He's like, I just can tell from your personality, you're going to be bored in 3 years. I'm like, first of all, I have so many hobbies. Like, there's not enough hours in the day for all the hobbies that I have. And I've never actually understood, and this sounds, I don't know, it sounds good or bad or whatever. I've never understood people who said, I don't know what I'm going to do in retirement, because I'm like, I can think of 1,000 things that I'm going to be doing, even if I didn't have these hobbies, all these things I want to try, all these places I want to go, all these people I want to meet, you know? But what was really fun about that conversation, and I said, well, you know what? If that's the case and I retire and 3 years now I'm bored and I go back to work, then I guess I'll just have really cool 3 years. And while my knees are still good and while my back doesn't hurt. So, like that's the thing that I am trying right now. And I've been telling everybody this is that, I'm like practicing retirement right now. I'm experimenting with retirement right now, as in like, if it doesn't work out, then guess what? I'll just go back to work. Who cares? Like, who cares if this doesn't pan out? But I also think about, I'm of the age where like, people still knew Michael Jordan before he was just a sneaker. And like, we all saw Michael Jordan retire and then come back and then retire again and then become a baseball player. Like,
Right.
so I can do the same thing.
Well, awesome. Well, I want to make sure we get a chance for you to share how people can reach you. But I want to ask you one more question. If there's somebody listening today and maybe they feel overwhelmed or unsure where to start, what is one small step they could take right now?
One small step I would like you to take immediately after finishing this podcast episode is to grab a piece of paper and to draw a picture of what your life would look like if money were no issue. So if you had enough money, draw a picture of what that life would look like. And I bet you that would be a clue into what you would want to retire to. And I find that the vast majority of women who I find it actually very challenging to work with on their retirement plans is because they don't actually have something to retire to outside of their kids and outside of their job. So what does that look like? Your perfect day, assuming you had all the money that you needed, what would that day look like? And then stick that on your wall, because that's an exercise I did with several of my clients 5 years ago, and they all came true.
That's perfect. So how can people reach you if they want to learn more about the work that you're doing, your services? How can people get in touch with you?
I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for being an ally. You can find me at crushyourmoneygoals.com. And if you would like to learn more just about the Crush model, I have a free guide. It's crushyourmoneygoals.com/free guide. And then on social media and all the platforms, I'm at Bernadette Joy, spelled with the word debt.
That is perfect. Bernadette, thank you so much for joining me. This has been a great conversation. We'll make sure we share all those links in the resources page for the episode. It's been awesome. It's great to get a chance to meet you. And thank you to our audience as well for listening in. That is it for today's episode. For all the links and resources mentioned, you can go to the simplyretirementpodcast.com. Until next time, please remember, retirement is not the end of the road. It's the start of a new journey.
That's it for today's episode of the Simply Retirement Podcast. We hope you found our insights and advice helpful in planning for a fulfilling retirement. Don't forget to take action on what you've learned today. Visit our website at blakewealthmanagement.com to learn more about our firm and review our Simply Retirement Roadmap process to get you on the right path to the retirement you deserve. And don't forget to click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. Thank you for joining us on this journey, and we look forward to helping you achieve your retirement goals. Remember, retirement is not the end of the road. It is the start of a new journey. So embrace it and make the most of it. Until next time, take care. Content here is for illustrative purposes and general information only. It is not legal, tax, or individualized financial advice, nor is it a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold any specific security, or engage in any specific trading strategy. Results will vary. Past performance is no indication of future results or success. Market conditions change continuously. This commentary reflects the personal opinions, viewpoints, and analyses of Blake Wealth Management. It does not necessarily represent those of RFG Advisory, their clients, or their employees. This commentary should not be regarded as a description of advisory services provided by Blake Wealth Management or RFG Advisory, or performance returns of any client. The views reflected in the commentary are subject to change at any time without notice. Advisory services offered by investment advisory representatives of RFG Advisory, a registered investment advisor. Blake Wealth Management and RFG Advisory are unaffiliated entities. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where RFG Advisory and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. No advisory services may be rendered by RFG Advisory unless a client agreement is in place.